In April 2026, a 10-year-old girl mailed a letter to NASA with a simple request: make Pluto a planet again. What surprised everyone is that NASA seemed to listen. The agency's administrator, Jared Isaacman, said they were looking into restoring Pluto's full planetary status. But there's a catch. NASA doesn't get the final word. That authority belongs to the International Astronomical Union, the very body that stripped Pluto of its planethood 2 decades ago. Few worlds stir up as much emotion as this distant frozen orb. So what is it about Pluto that keeps capturing our imagination? Why has the fight over its status suddenly flared up again? And could it really, one day, be a planet once more? Pluto has always carried an air of mystery. For most of the last century, it was the outermost planet we knew, drifting on average nearly 6 billion kilometers from the Sun. Since its discovery in 1930, only a single spacecraft has ever visited it: New Horizons. Launched in 2006 from Cape Canaveral, the probe raced across the solar system for 9 years. On the 14th of July 2015, it made its closest approach, and what it revealed shattered every expectation. Ice mountains, nitrogen glaciers, cryovolcanoes, and yawning canyons. But the distances were so vast that data trickled back at barely 1 or 2 kilobytes per second. It took 16 months to receive it all, and each new image caused a sensation. Consider a strange feature near the equator nicknamed the brass knuckles. 6 dark lowland regions, each roughly the size of Iceland, laced together by canyons. Their dark tone comes from tholins, reddish hydrocarbons formed when methane and nitrogen are bombarded by cosmic rays. These stains coat much of Pluto, including a vast whale-shaped region nearby. Then there's Pluto's most famous feature, a bright, heart-shaped plain named Tombor Regio, after the astronomer who discovered the world. Its western lobe is a smooth basin of nitrogen ice called Sputnik Planitia. Winds appear to lift nitrogen from this basin, carry it into the thin atmosphere, and deposit it onto the rugged eastern highlands, which then glow with a bright, icy sheen. Some of that ice slowly flows back down as glaciers, a quiet, endless exchange between the two halves of the heart. Elsewhere, near a mountain range called Al Idrisi Montes, New Horizons found something no one predicted: dunes. Tiny grains of methane ice, lifted by sublimating nitrogen, drift across the surface and pile into fields spanning thousands of square kilometers, all at a bone-freezing -230 degrees Celsius. But the most astonishing possibility is this: Pluto may hide a subsurface ocean, that a world smaller than our own moon, so far from the sun, could hold liquid water beneath its crust, stunned scientists. The clues are written across its landscape: shifting mountains, deep trenches, and towering cryovolcanoes like Reitmons, 4 kilometers tall with a gaping pit at its summit, and the even larger Picard Mons, rising 7 kilometers. Their central depressions hint at ancient eruptions of icy slush from deep within. Pluto, then, is a rich and beautiful world. But does that make it a planet? To answer that, we have to go back to 1978 and a single blurry photograph. That year, astronomer James Christie was studying old plates of Pluto to refine its orbit. Several had been marked defective because Pluto appeared not as a clean dot, but as a strange, elongated bulge. Most would have thrown them away. But Christie noticed something crucial. The background stars were perfectly sharp. If the telescope were at fault, everything would be smeared. Only Pluto was distorted, which meant the bulge was real. Digging through archives going back to 1965, he watched the bulge circle Pluto once every 6.4 days, exactly matching Pluto's rotation. It wasn't a flaw, it was a moon. He named it Charon after his wife's nickname, only later learning that in myth, Charon was the ferryman of the dead in Pluto's underworld. A perfect coincidence. Charon changed everything. By tracking its orbit, astronomers finally weighed the system, and the result was shocking. Pluto was far lighter than anyone thought, about a sixth the mass of Earth's moon, and Charon held a remarkable 12% of Pluto's mass. No other moon comes close to such a ratio. That near equality creates something unique. Normally, a moon orbits a point deep inside its planet, but Pluto and Charon are so evenly matched that their shared center of gravity floats in empty space between them. The two bodies waltz around an invisible point in the void, and both are mutually tidally locked, each forever showing the same face to the other. Stand on one side of Pluto, and Charon hangs motionless in the sky, never rising or setting. Stand on the other, and you'd never know it existed. To many astronomers, this looked less like a planet and a moon, and more like a double planet. It fed directly into the great debate of the early 2000s, because at the same time, astronomers were finding other distant worlds beyond Neptune: Quaoar, Sedna, Makemake, and Eris. Eris turned out to be even more massive than Pluto. So if Pluto was a planet, were these planets too? To settle it, the International Astronomical Union wrote a new definition. A planet must do three things: orbit the Sun, be round from its own gravity, and clear its orbital neighborhood of other objects. Pluto passed the first two, but its tiny mass had never swept its orbit clean of the thousands of icy bodies around it. On that third rule, Pluto fell. So how did this strange pair form? The old idea was a violent giant impact, like the one that made our moon. But Pluto and Charon are rigid worlds of rock and ice, not molten stone. Newer simulations suggest something gentler, a slow grazing collision. The two proto-worlds touched, briefly stuck together as a single spinning snowman. Then tidal forces pulled them apart, leaving them bound forever. A kiss and capture. It explains why both survived largely intact: Pluto rockier, Charon icier, and how the immense friction of their embrace injected deep heat into both. That heat is the key to Charon's dramatic history. When New Horizons flew past, it revealed a world that had torn itself apart. A vast belt of chasms wraps around its equator, running at least 1,800 kilometers and plunging up to 7.5 kilometers deep, far larger than Earth's Grand Canyon. These are pull-apart faults. Long ago, Charon's internal heat melted its ice into a hidden ocean. As it slowly froze, the water expanded, because ice takes up more room than liquid, pushing outward until the crust ruptured. That frozen ocean also resurfaced half the moon. The northern terrain is ancient and cratered, but the south is a smooth young plain called Vulcan Planitia, one of the largest fields of ice volcanism known. Pressurized slushy water, likely laced with ammonia, flooded the surface and froze flat, leaving isolated mountains stranded like icebergs. And crowning it all is Charon's North Pole, a dark reddish stain nicknamed Mordor macula. It may be methane escaping Pluto's atmosphere, captured by Charon and frozen at its frigid pole, then cooked by ultraviolet light into red tholins. One world, quietly painting another across the void. Which brings us back to the question, could Pluto be a planet again? There's a genuine wrinkle in the current rule. To clear its neighborhood is a strict demand, yet Earth shares its orbit with 10,000 asteroids, and Jupiter with 100,000. Taken literally, would they pass? Some scientists argue that a world's geological richness should matter more than a tidy orbit. With NASA's administrator now openly sympathetic, the definition may one day be revisited. In the end, planet is a human word. We decided it once. We could decide it again. Whatever we call it, this small, complex, extraordinary world will keep drawing our wonder, a rose by any other name.